gang missions of GTA 5 make absolutely no sense whatsoever, and they're filled with hundreds of hidden details that change everything, from a secret gang war that has existed for over a decade, all the way to a hidden gang faction that'll likely show up in GTA 6. This all started when I was working at the pizza place, which is one of the 2 ways to make an honest living in Los Santos, even though the business model felt a little shady at times, as delivering pizzas felt weirder than it should be, not because I was a murderous criminal psychopath, but because delivering 5 pizzas over the span of 20 minutes somehow elicits over $1,000 in tips. So maybe this gig was a little less legal than I thought it was. That's why I decided to make a change. We were gonna try our hand at some contact missions, taking place in the less spectacular regions of San Andreas, with experimental armored sports car technology, which I stupidly host from a condo in the downtown area. Inside the condo, I gathered the dumbest people I knew by tricking them into thinking we were binging reality TV shows. But in reality, we were gonna get involved with the gang factions of Los Santos. Naturally, Ivan asked how much money we were gonna be making for working for these gangsters, and I instantly changed the subject by offering Ivan junk food and drugs. But he instantly didn't fall for it, so I had to tell him the truth. I told him that we were gonna work for Gerald for the Chamberlain gang families. These missions technically are categorized as gang missions. However, they're a bit stranger than many previously thought, and after taking a closer look, these jobs were less simple than I made them out to be. So, what was so crazy about these gang missions? Well, first we had to go to one of those second-hand thrift stores to acquire what the kids will refer to as street drip, as to not arouse suspicion in these racially charged neighborhoods. But why exactly did these jobs require a change of clothing? Because these aren't no ordinary contact missions. Gerald's missions mostly take place in low-profile locations around the city that are heavily defended by gang-affiliated goons, where 2 parties meet up in an exchange of illegal goods, which most of the time had involvement with the Vagos gang, and a lot of the time had involvement with the Lost MC. But what those 2 parties don't know is that there's a third party. But this party isn't buying drugs with money and bartering. We bought it with violence and gun murder. That's all because Gerald missions are all about being a stick-up crew. This stick-up took us to the sprawling sands of Vespucci Beach, with an uncomfortable amount of witnesses. However, the only first-time responders are lifeguards, so it made it easy to steal drugs using the semi-regulated bike paths, which was the most legal element of this whole situation. Every one of these jobs usually ended in the same place, Gerald's residence, where he stupidly stashed 99% of the drugs we steal, in the most dangerous neighborhood in the continental United States. As these jobs progressed, so did the difficulty. The next one took us to a scrapyard near the docks. But if you're familiar with Los Santos and its gang factions, you would know that this is no ordinary can factory scrapyard, but an illegal drug-pushing front that is controlled by the ballers. They use this place to facilitate the transportation of drugs, but that didn't explain why they were setting up a deal with an unknown faction. Eventually, the deals around town got word of these brutal stick-ups. As a result, they became better protected. The locations of these deals became lower profile. Gangs started to brandish their guns at the ready and worked over some rather intelligent alliances across factions. These security measures changed how we'd approach these jobs, having to find hidden flanks and pathways in the city, which was the only way we'd level the playing field and ensured we had the best chance of survival in these missions. But all of this had bigger consequences than we were ready for. When the deals in the dark alleys became a bad idea, the Lost MC tried to fish these deals out into the open. That way, we couldn't sneak up on the meats anymore, making all our previous strategies completely null and void. I mean, it's kinda hard to sneak up on a drug beat in the middle of a drainage canal, so instead of moving closer to the meats we ambushed, we moved further away. Eventually, these drug meats got harder to find in the city of Los Santos, so we had to move outside the city. But outside the city, there sprung new factions, and with new factions, there sprung new problems. No longer were we just robbing street gangs in San Andreas. Now we were meth pushing in the Grand Senora Desert, and stealing RV meth labs. Gerald's apartment became a second-rate hardware store where we hoped to see the CGF couriers, and not a redneck ambush from the Reeds where they would kill us brutally just to get paid 20% of what this shit is worth anyway. Eventually, drug deals became almost impossible to find, so Gerald ended up setting up his own deals using the CGF. Plus, it's easier to rob these ill-gotten deals when you're the one picking the deal location and who you're dealing with in the first place, which was Gerald's first biggest fucking mistake, as ambushing your own deals introduces its own complications. But to make sure the Vagos don't retaliate with a revenge attack, we had to find the shot callers in the Vago set of San Andreas to stop an entire war before it even began. Since attacking our own drug meets proved to be too dangerous, we had to start attacking more professional outfits, like the mysterious professional crew that moved drugs out of Vice City. And they knew a lot of Hispanic gang members that operated there. But the real question I had about these mysterious new factions were, why do we still know very little about them? Attacking drug deals eventually became completely out of the question, so we moved to attacking the only best alternative. We were mobilizing on their stash locations, which required a lot of coordination. But we weren't just attacking their drug stashes, we were also pushing them out of their own territory. After attacking a few known stash locations on the streets, the only thing left that we could attack were their smuggling operations, where we were outnumbered 20-1 more times than not. These rigorous attacks eventually had some severe consequences. New alliances were being forged in the shadows. The Ballers and Redneck factions organized to form a new trade, and the worst part is that they gathered a lot of information on the CGF. Some of this information regarded the involvement of our stick-up operation, and if this alliance goes through, we'd all be in the crosshairs, leaving Gerald, Lamar, us, and even Franklin with a price on their heads. With the aid of a strange new Redneck faction, possibly the same ones we attacked at the gas station in Sandy Shores, so there was a lot of bad blood that needed to be resolved. And that's why in Hit 'em Up there's no drug deals to bust. It's a string of assassinations of the Ballers gang to save our lives. But the assassinations were not constrained to the city of Los Santos. Many Ballers fled to the wilderness in order to organize their forces. And silencing these new enforcers was the only way to maintain peace. This also goes to show how the Ballers established themselves in that sawmill, as they had ties to these rural gangs that operated in the woods, running freight through the various farms and ranches. These Ballers dead, there was still one last assassination target, but he wasn't anywhere to be seen at the ranch, because he relocated to fortify a last stand at a burnt-out hotel, strongly fortified by some of the Ballers' meanest gangsters, and desperately trying to enable a green light on an all-out war with Gerald's CGF. However, it went even deeper than all this. Motel shootout marked an end of hostilities from the Ballers, mostly because we murdered every last man that defended that building, and mostly to selfishly save our own skins as we didn't really give a shit about Gerald. Otherwise, we wouldn't have staged a three-pronged assault on an abandoned hotel and slaughtered absolutely everybody. But while we were dealing with the Ballers threat that almost wiped out our entire stick-up operation, another threat was looming in the drug-infested shadows. Similar to the previous situation we desperately dealt with, the Lost MC were cutting deals and alliances of their own, mostly with hippies to to acquire a drug trade that wouldn't be attacked. See, Gerald had no way to sell acid, so we'd essentially starve. So the only way to ensure that we could steal the drugs we can sell, we had to steal the drugs that we couldn't sell, therefore denying the Lost MC an untouchable revenue stream. If only we knew what was happening in the city while we took these guys out. While we were taking out the hippies and bikers, the professionals from the Scrapyard deal were organizing some kind of scheme. But this time, they'd already killed hundreds of Gerald's friends, and they were snitching out Gerald to the cops like some rats. But their biggest mistake was ratting on us as well. That's why I completely stopped running a stick-up crew for the CGF. Maybe it was because of the drugs and violence, but mostly it was the senseless murder targeted at the most powerful drug organizations, resulting in a $3 million bounty on the heads of me and my comrades in crime. But that's okay, because we just got a better job offer from a man by the name of Trevor Philips. At least this wasn't like working with Lamar Davis. All his stupid, pointless schemes amounted to absolutely nothing. I mean, did you notice what he was doing the whole time? I'm surprised he's even alive with the bullshit this man fucking committed.